response to our 15 most haunted places in America video was great, so we're continuing the theme with some of the most famous haunted places in the entire world. Check out these fascinating locations said to be roamed by spectral visitors. Čakice Castle, Slovakia. In the early part of the 17th century, a Hungarian countess named Elizabeth Bathory was accused of murdering some 650 women across what is today known as Slovakia. Legend has it that Bathory's servants lured young women to Čakice Castle with the promise of work and education, only to help butcher them. Although she was never officially punished for her crimes, the infamous murders said to take place at the castle have led to numerous stories of ghost sightings within and around its ruined walls atop the hill. Tower of London, London, England. One of the most popular visitor attractions in England, the Tower of London is a historic castle located on the north bank of the River Thames. The White Tower was built by William the Conqueror, the first Norman king of England, in 1078. From 1100 until 1952, the castle was famously used as a prison, housing people like Elizabeth I before she became queen. Executions were carried out on Tower Hill to the north of the castle, where many of the ghosts that people claim to see are found. The most famous spectral resident is Anne Boleyn, who supposedly walks around the White Tower, carrying her head under her arm. Valley of the Kings, Egypt. Ancient Egypt's burial practices are well known today, and given the advanced techniques of preservation that allowed them to make mummies, it's little wonder that any place associated with ancient Egyptian burials is rumored to be haunted. The Valley of the Kings, located in hills on the western Nile, was used as a burial site for nearly 500 years, known to the Egyptians as the Royal Necropolis. These man-made tombs were carved into the cliffside to house the bodies and earthly possessions of pharaohs and Egyptian nobles, including the likes of the boy pharaoh Tutankhamun, whose tomb was discovered fully intact in 1922. Underground Catacombs, Paris, France. The catacombs of Paris are underground ossuaries which hold the remains of more than 6 million people in a small part of a tunnel network built to consolidate Paris's ancient stone mines. Construction on this burial site began in 1774, and from 1786, nightly processions of covered wagons transferred remains from most of Paris's cemeteries to a mineshaft leading into the catacombs. The site has become extremely popular among paranormal seekers, who believe that the disrespect shown to the dead by using their bones as decoration has caused unrest in their eternal slumber. Visitors have reported the feeling of being touched by invisible hands, being followed, and some have even described feeling the sensation of being strangled. The Winchester Mystery House, San Jose, California. The heir to the Winchester Repeating Arms Company after her husband William passed away in 1881, Sarah Winchester inherited roughly $20 million and asked for the advice of a medium on how to spend it in her grief. Legend says that her husband's spirit was conjured by the medium, and that he told her to move from Connecticut to California to build a massive home for the spirits of those who had died to Winchester rifles, or else they would haunt her for the rest of her days. Bought in 1884 as a small, unfinished farmhouse, the house was quickly changed with constant expansions, eventually turning the home into a 7-story monstrosity. Many of the alterations proved pointless, with hallways or staircases leading to absolutely nothing. The final product of the home had over 160 rooms and 10,000 panes of glass, and has gone down in history as one of the most famous haunted houses in the entire world. Bran Castle, Transylvania, Romania. Bran Castle is Transylvania's most famous castle, and the one associated with Bram Stoker's Dracula. This ominous structure was a favorite residence of Romania's Queen Marie, and its museum honors both this regal ruler and pays homage to the associations the castle has gained with the Dracula legend, however erroneous they may be. While the castle may not be as frightening as some sources suggest, both the folklore of the countryside, in which undead souls are said to haunt villagers at night, and the brutal medieval past that the castle witnessed provide enough evidence for it to be considered haunted. Island of Dolls, Mexico. This creepy island filled with decrepit dolls was dedicated to a young girl who was supposedly found drowned on the island. The dolls left here are left in her memory, but some say that they house the spirit of the girl, with some visitors even claiming to have seen them move or even speak to one another. Don Julian Santana Barrera was the former caretaker of the island who found the body of the deceased girl. Many locals claim that his spirit has joined hers after his passing in 2001, and since then the island has become a popular tourist attraction, with many visitors bringing their own dolls to leave behind. Eastern State Penitentiary, Pennsylvania, United States. This menacing Gothic-style prison opened in 1829 and became the first in the U.S. to implement solitary confinement. Prisoners languished in the penitentiary's stone cells with nearly zero human contact, and they had hoods placed over their heads any time they were moved. The so-called Pennsylvania system was replicated in several other states and in Europe. Al Capone was probably the most famous inmate at Eastern State Penitentiary, having served time in the institution from August 1929 to March 1930, but he had a much cushier arrangement than his fellow prisoners. When the facility closed in 1971, it was believed that the ghosts of the inmates took back the prison. Visitors claimed to see their apparitions wandering the corridors and to hear mischievous whispers in the abandoned cell blocks. Highgate Cemetery, London, England. Opened in 1839, Highgate is one of London's most infamous cemeteries, originally opened as one of the city's magnificent 7 park cemeteries. Among the impressive Victorian and Egyptian-influenced tombs here, you can find the gravestones of communist thinker Karl Marx, science fiction author Douglas Adams, and the blind traveler James Holman. It was brought back into the limelight through its extensive use in horror movie productions from the London-based Hammer Studio leading up to the 1970s, and stories of grave robbing, desecration, and vampires began appearing in the local news. The Highgate vampire sensation, as it was known, culminated in 1970 when magicians Ferrant and Manchester claimed that each would be the first to find and kill the supposed blood-sucking menace. Manchester himself announced an official vampire hunt, and on Friday the 13th, a mob stormed the cemetery, looting and destroying graves and corpses in the belief that they would slay their foe. Charleville Castle, Tullamore, Ireland. This mid-17th century castle in Ireland has passed hands many times, housing the likes of Lord Byron, who held famously raucous parties within its stone walls. The castle is reputed to be haunted by the ghost of a young girl named Harriet, the youngest daughter of the 3rd Earl of Charleville, who died tragically on the main staircase of the building at the age of 8 in April of 1861. Her presence in the castle has been reported many times by many different people, whether by sounds late at night, or even being caught on camera as a ghostly shadow or mist. Other visitors claim to have seen the image of a little girl wearing a blue and white dress with golden curls and blue ribbons in her hair. The castle has been investigated by various ghost hunting television shows from around the world, but the majority of its visitors come for the exhibition space of the Explorers Museum that was dedicated in honor of Colonel Charles Kenneth Howard Bury. The Haunted Vicarage, Borov, Sweden. Built in 1876, this humble house for holy men started getting its first supposed hauntings in 1927 when the resident vicar reported strange happenings, including his laundry being torn from the line. Tales of supernatural events continued in the ensuing decades, with almost every new vicar or their family and guests claiming to experience ghostly antics. Things moved, screams heard, shadows seen, and empty rocking chairs moving back and forth led many visitors to add to the small cottage's haunted history. In the early 80s, the site caught the attention of an outsider priest named Tor Vorsland, known as the Ghost Priest. He came to the village of Borov with the promises of ridding the home of its ghostly squatters, but he left within a year after his exorcisms showed no signs of success. Dotty Park, Dotty, Belgium. This abandoned amusement park located to the south of Antwerp near the French border is also Europe's oldest. It was opened in 1950 with the help of a local pastor as a simple playground for the children of families visiting the nearby basilica, and was later evolved into a separate theme park entirely. It was rather successful from the 1980s onward, until a series of horrible accidents occurred, provoked by the increasingly run-down and ill-kept rides. After a 9-year-old boy lost his arm at Dotty Park in 2000, visitation quickly diminished, leading to the park's closing just 2 years later. Ghost hunters have visited the site rather frequently, noting a strange energy radiating through the park, as nature has shown a vigorous tenacity for reclaiming its territory. The Hanging Coffins, Sagada, Philippines. Members of the Igorot tribe of the Mountain Province in northern Philippines have long practiced the tradition of burying their dead in hanging coffins, nailed to the sides of cliff faces high above the ground. One of the most common beliefs behind this practice is that moving the bodies of the dead higher up brings them closer to their ancestral spirits. This tradition dates back over 2,000 years, but has receded in regularity in recent years as newer generations in the Philippines are more influenced by the country's heavily Christian population. Sedlec Ossuary, Kutná Hora, Czech Republic. It's hard to know where to start with the Sedlec Ossuary, which is more well known internationally as the Bone Church. Constructed out of the bones of some 40,000 people, this structure has many features, all made with bones as well, such as the 8-foot chandelier said to contain almost every bone a human being can grow. The artist of this morbid decoration, František Rint, even signed his name in bones on one of the walls near the entrance. It's not a stretch to say that many people feel a lingering presence inside this macabre piece of human art. Castle of Good Hope, Cape Town, South Africa. Built by soldiers, sailors, and slaves between the years 1666 and 1679, the Castle of Good Hope is the oldest building in South Africa, having survived centuries of violence and slavery. It surely comes as no surprise, then, that it has left behind a legacy of disturbed and restless spirits of tormented souls roaming its cold passageways. The most common sightings here are of Governor Peter Gisbert van Noort. Known to have been a strict ruler with an extremely profane mouth, he unjustly sentenced 7 soldiers to death for military desertion in 1728. After refusing to meet the demands of one of the soldiers attending the execution, that soldier apparently put a curse on the governor, and he was discovered dead by a heart attack in his office later that day. Today, many workers and visitors have mentioned his bitter presence and cursing within the castle walls. If you enjoy content like this video, please subscribe to our channel for more.